Welcome back to the GameSpot E3 stage, brought to you by Airheads Bytes. Joining myself and Scott today on the couch, messed my words up a little bit there, but we've got John from Epic Games here to talk about Paragon. Welcome.
Thank you.
What are you guys showing off this E3?
Well, for this, we're making a few announcements, and one of the things we're excited to show off is our upcoming character. So it's a new hero, Chimera, and he's sort of a melee brawler, and he's built, I think it's our hero team kind of hitting their stride, built specifically to get into team fights and then stick there. So he's probably going to change up a lot of the team comps and the way people are going through and engaging when they're ready to brawl.
So thinking of Epic's history as a studio, obviously you had like Unreal Tournament and Gears of War. When you were kind of deciding to create a new game, why did you choose a MOBA?
Well, for us, we had a really rare opportunity to build pretty much anything we wanted. The only constraint on the project from the start was it's going to be a competitive multiplayer game. So with that in mind, we had a dev team, and half the guys were familiar with MOBAs, the other half not so much. But we were driven by what are the things that make things sticky and that keep you coming back. For us, it was the stories. And the stories that stuck with us the longest were ones of kind of a shared experience where you had to work together to achieve something. And MOBAs offer more of that in a unique way. People survive longer, so when you pull off a big play, you have to work together. So with that in mind, we went out and we started trying to take the best elements of MOBAs and then put a unique spin on it related to what we've done for a long time at Epic. So taking the action that you expect from a game like Unreal Tournament or a game like Gears, take some of the beautiful high-fidelity graphics that you expect from the art team that did those games and bringing it into the MOBA space. And so that was what inspired us.
We have a kind of a little bit wary MOBA. If basically anything that's not like Dota or League, it's typically seen as like a very volatile space, and a lot of new players kind of rise up. So I'm thinking like Guardians of Middle-earth or Infinite Crisis. Maybe just because they're both Warner Brothers, but they both kind of tried it and it didn't take. What's so different about Paragon? Have you found like your own community? Because it's different. It's not the isometric view, it's the third person.
Yeah, absolutely. For us, we're in early access, and so we have been seeing our community grow. And a big part of what we think makes it unique is that feeling of action, where for most of the top-down MOBAs, you're clicking and moving your guy along the field, but with our game, you're there, you're controlling your characters, and verticality is a huge part of what we think makes the game unique, where you're aiming in full 3 dimensions. So you have these moments where we've got a character called Rampage. He pulls boulders out of the ground and can toss them at you, and as a player, you have all these choices that are directly related to being in a 3D space. Do you dash forward and try and run under it? Do you dash to the side? You can try and have another teammate throw in one of their abilities to block it. Those are the types of things that we think are unique stories and plays that come out of Paragon.
So, I mean, I've been reading up about the game, and it seems that you guys are kind of introducing new patches and stuff all the time because you are in early access and you're kind of finding that perfect balance. What's it like? How do your player base respond when you introduce a new patch so frequently and, you know, they've been building up their own metagame and you kind of like throw it on its side a little bit?
Well, it was because of that really important for us from the very beginning to say the most consistent thing about Paragon is going to be change.
Yeah.
We're going to be growing it and taking advantage of being a live game, which is something that the dev team was really excited about, being able to continually grow and change the game. So it's been tough, but we've been doing patches and updates every week, so we keep that cadence of change.
I mean, the most recently you guys nerfed, was it ranges and movement speed, changed all that?
We made a bunch of changes to those things. In fact, this week we've launched probably our biggest batch of metagame changes. But it's something where we have our community team telling people, hey, these changes are coming. We try and explain why. And so the reaction has been pretty positive, where people have information. They understand the goals for what we're trying to achieve and our commitment to changing it to make a better game. So change is always tough. You get used to playing something a certain way, and then, it doesn't quite work. But then there are all of these new toys and strategies that come along with it. So far it's been really healthy.
But for a more casual player, maybe that's not... Yeah, it's more difficult for them because things change. They'll play maybe one day and then they'll come back next week and it's completely different. How are you guys kind of ensuring that there's some baseline, you know, how are you working to find that baseline before you make all the other little tweaks and changes around it?
For a lot of that, it's the timing of major changes. So for example, this week's build, we pulled together a lot of these things we've been working on over time. So there's not that randomization of every week. The game's completely different.
Yeah. Another
part of it is iterating on matchmaking. So we group players of equivalent skill together as best we can. So that helps new players as they onboard. And over time, from the beginning of early access to now, a lot of our new features and a lot of our focus has been on making it more accessible, easing onboarding, providing more tips and hints, that type of thing, to make it a better experience for new players.
Oh, just got some little jaunty French music coming out of nowhere there.
Yeah, why not? So given that this game is currently in early access and you are sort of iterating on it and trying to, find the perfect balance for everything, is there ever going to come a point when the game is done? You're like, aha, Paragon is released. And, it doesn't mean that you won't continue to update it, but, at what point will Paragon be like a finished product? What will that take?
I think part of the appeal for us of the MOBA genre is that it's always growing and evolving, rolling out new characters, seeing the metagame sort of change as those new characters come out. So for us, there's not really an end point in sight. It's not something that we really fixate on. I think for most developers, there's always that thing they want to change, that either something that didn't come out quite perfectly or something new they wanted to try. So for us, that's sort of what we look forward to, that constant change. So there's not really something we think of as, oh, that's it, it's done. It's going to be, all right, what next? What's the next challenge we should tackle, the next change we should roll out that we think people will enjoy?
So it's a free-to-play game. How have you kind of tweaked and worked your free-to-play model? Because obviously you have games that are already existing in the space. Were they used as like an inspiration for how much you can charge for things? Or was it more, we think this is what our community is going to want, this is what we can charge for, or that?
So right now we're in paid early access, and we've announced just this week that we're going into free open beta on PC and PlayStation 4 on August 16th. As far as being fundamentally something that's going to be free, a big part of it was inspired by something that's sort of lit Epic up over the past few years, which is the changes that we made to the engine and trying to really focus on what's best for the player. So for us, we want to embrace a model where all the heroes are free and have been since the beginning of early access. We want it to be things that affect gameplay should be free, and we think that's what gives players the best experience. So the stuff that they opt into, if they want to buy something, will be cosmetics, things that they decide they enjoy, but it's not mandatory for them to even have a chance of enjoying.
So it's like Team Fortress hats, right?
More along those lines, yeah. That's something to compare it to.
People do love hats.
They really,
I've
really
discovered.
do. Is there any scope to kind of get cosmetic items from other Epic franchises in as kind of nice little Easter eggs? Or have you guys planned that out already? Are there going to be touches to other products?
It's some of the stuff that we've talked about internally, and we have a lot of different things going, and so that's part of the advantage of having a studio that has a flexible engine and a bunch of different projects all within the same space. So in our headquarters, we can get inspired by each other, so that's something that we are definitely talking about and thinking of.
Could we get Marcus Phoenix as a hero? I mean, come on, that'd be pretty cool.
It would be a dream.
Can't make any promises there.
All right, Raul, you think about it. How do you come up with or decide when it's time to introduce a new hero? Is this something that you're constantly iterating on? Are you constantly trying to come up with characters to add? Or is it like, we feel like the roster's gotten a little stale, time to come up with something new?
Well, for us, we're releasing new heroes every 3 weeks, and we're committed to doing that for the indefinite future. For where heroes come from, we've got our design team and a studio full of really passionate game players and game developers. So there's a kind of massive pile of people's ideas where they've got ideas for heroes, ideas for kits. They come from batches of concepts for cool things you might be able to play, and they also come from people who are drawing great art, and some characters, that's where they start, just a cool image. Someone thinks I could make an awesome hero kit for that.
Are there any heroes whose sort of natural gameplay wouldn't really work? I mean, have there been ideas where you're like, this seems like a cool character, but it's just not right for Paragon?
I think over time, especially at the beginning of the project where we're defining what Paragon was going to be, we went through a lot of iterations of heroes where, as we were trying to sort of find out what the core of the game was, we built certain things where it was, this isn't quite working out. So some of our older characters, the ones in our first batch that we shipped with at the very beginning of early access, there was some of... They've come so far from where they started. So there have been bits of that over the lifetime of the project.
Gotcha.
So you mentioned that new characters are introduced new heroes introduced every 3 weeks. So how far in advance do you need to be planning that hero? Because I imagine even for animation, for graphics, for everything to put
balance.
Yeah, for balance especially.
Yeah, that is a big part of our pipeline, and across all of our teams, exactly what you mentioned, animation, audio, all those different departments need to line up. So we're generally months ahead as far as what heroes are currently in development, either being prototyped, play tested. So that sort of pipeline is always in motion, and we're sort of shuffle things around at the end as they come together.
Is there any scope for maybe a character that a member of your community has created to be put into the game?
Ooh.
That would be quite cool.
I would say you never know what the future might hold, and it's something that ideas have come from all sorts of places within the company, and I think it'd be possible at some point in the future. We don't have any definite plans for it, but it's that type of back and forth that we think is a great way of interacting with the community.
Would you ever consider cycling any heroes out? I mean, is there ever going to come a point where the roster is just overwhelmingly large and you need to maybe make some cuts, or is the plan just to let it continue to grow?
I'd say at this point the plan is to let it continue to grow. A lot of the MOBAs that are out there have 100+ heroes, and
That's
so we
true.
have a long road ahead of us of building new characters. And I think, speaking for the hardcore MOBA players at Epic, that's a big part of the appeal of the game, is every hero you've got offers you a new way of interacting, not just with the game itself, but with your teammates. So having that wide roster, we think, is a big part of the appeal.
Typically in team-based, especially in MOBAs, you kind of need a wide variety of heroes in your kind of team to make sure that you can hit the enemy in very specific ways. You know, you need a ranger, you need like a healer, you need support, all that kind of thing. Is there a way to play the game? Is it open enough that you can play it like all brute force or all support or something? Or is there ways that you can like make sure that each team is balanced in that kind of way?
Well, something that influenced the very beginning of the project, one of our goals, and along the way we keep iterating on this, is trying to create a game that allows for a lot of different types of play. That was also part of the original appeal of doing a MOBA rather than just a straight-up shooter. So you can have success as someone who's focused on brawling, on melee, on range combat, but you can also have a support character be really valuable, a healer. You can have characters who are focused on the sort of the in-game economy of collecting resources to buff up the rest of the team. Another big piece of it is using the card system and allowing that to sort of bend the way where you and I might play the same character, but we have entirely different decks. You might play more of a tanky character, and I might bend my character to be more of a glass cannon. So that's part of what we think makes it a little bit more engaging and allows people to play in different ways where it's not just all about killing.
Given that there are so many heroes and you do have the card system, I mean, this is a problem that every MOBA faces, but how the hell do you balance those many elements? How do you ensure that as you introduce new things, the game remains consistently fair?
Well, that is a big part of why we worked so hard to get into a position where we could do weekly updates. So a big part of it is we play test it within our team. We have our competitive QA group that's always taking a look and keeping their finger on the pulse of balance. We're looking at the feedback from the community, and we're looking at the metrics that come out of the game, win rates, losses, that type of thing. And we have a lot of people whose time is dedicated to figuring out, okay, what do we need to change? What can we safely do within a week? What's going to take longer? What are more sweeping changes? So a big part of it is taking advantage of being live and being able to do updates on a regular basis.
Do you judge people in the studio based on who they pick, who's their primary hero is?
No, they're all our beloved children.
Oh, of course, yeah. No, it's not like silently like, oh, he's that kind of guy.
Yeah.
So how does the card system actually work once you're in game?
So once you're in game, over the course of a match, there'll be various things that you can do that build up card points. And as you level up the number of card points you have, you unlock the ability to play cards, to use them. All the different cards that you have different values. So you can build decks that can potentially bend towards having a perfectly balanced deck, beginning, middle, late. You might build a deck that is entirely weighted towards having high-end, expensive card points that you only play at the end of the match or mid-match when you've built up enough card points. So you can strategize in a bunch of different ways, and because you're in it as a team and some of the card points that you gather will be shared across the team, it's something where you can have individual contribution, but as a support character, for example, you could be pretty focused on gathering card points for the team, where you might not be out there in every team fight, but the stuff that you're doing enables the rest of your team to activate their cards and change the way they play the game and power up.
So when you're taking on board, like if you're unfamiliar maybe with MOBAs and you're balancing this card system, how do you manage to introduce that to a new player?
That's a big part of what we've been working on over the past few months. We knew going into early access it was going to be a pretty hardcore experience. I mean, not just because it's a MOBA, because we do have some elements that are a bit of a break from MOBA tradition, including the card system. So that's a big piece of it. And right now we're working towards doing a lot to ease the onboarding process and educate people for how those different elements work.
So before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask, you've already touched on quite a few of these things, but looking out to the future, 3 months, 6 months, a year from now, what changes can players expect beyond new heroes?
For us, we've got a lot planned for continuing to evolve the metagame. We're going to be removing travel mode eventually and replacing it with new movement mechanics like teleport. Beyond that, we're also focusing on new ways of balancing competitive play and getting into it in different ways. Just this week, we rolled out draft mode matchmaking, where the game really begins when you're building up your team and making decisions based on who picks what in the very, very initial phase of matchmaking. So between that and seeing how ranked play will evolve as we design it within the studio, those are the types of things that people have to look forward to over the next few months.
Cool. That's awesome. And so it's in early access at the moment?
Yep.
We've got a beta coming in August?
Yeah, open beta, free open beta will be August 16th.
Awesome. John, thank you so much for joining us. Guys, for more of your E3 coverage from this year's show, make sure you stay tuned, of course, to GameSpot.com.
You're watching the GameSpot stage, brought to you by Airheads Bytes.